What's going on, guys? What's going on this morning? Today we will be discussing the commonly asked questions that I receive from individuals about smart homes. But before we get into the smart home questions, guys, if you have not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. Click that notification bell. That way you can be notified of any of our upcoming videos. That really helps us out a lot, guys. We really appreciate it. All right, let's go ahead and get into the content. Let's first start off by discussing what is a smart home. What is a smart home? There's a lot of information out there about what a smart home is, what a smart home does, what a smart home does not do. All right, we're going to try to answer that question here today, guys. A smart home is basically a home that's equipped with electronic devices that basically does the most mundane tasks that basically humans don't want to do. Example, one that used to get me all the time was, I would go upstairs. Me and my wife would go upstairs, and then as soon as we get into bed, we look up and the hallway lights are on. So we would have to get back out of the bed and go back to the hallway and cut the hallway lights off. So we equipped the hallway lights with a smart device, and that way, once we got into the bed, then the lights would cut off in about 5 minutes. So that's basically what a smart home does. You can control a smart home with a tablet. You can control it with your computer. You can control it via voice assistant, or you can control it with your cell phone. So those are some things to think about when you decide you want to get into smart homes. All right, how do you start a smart home? That's the next question that I'll often get into. There's two ways to get into smart homes. The first way is to hire what is called help me out, guys. What is called an integrator. An integrator is an individual that basically does home automation, whole home auto or things like that for a living. So that individual, he would come in, he would sit down with you, he would do a consultation and ask you, what are your needs? That's the beauty of a smart home. The beauty of a smart home is you tailor that smart home to what you want it to be like, what your needs are. So if lighting is important to you, that's what you tailor your smart home. If controlling your heat and air conditioning system too is important to you, then that's what you put into your smart home. So he sits down with you and he says, okay, Mr. Edie or Mr. Johnson, this is what you put out that's important to you. So we're going to tailor your smart home to that. So he goes in, he designs your smart home for you. And the good thing about the integrator is that the smart home, it usually works because they use proprietary equipment or equipment that has been tested with their particular system. So they know it's going to work. Once they set it up, it does work. So the next route you can go is the DIY route, do it yourself. So you can get into the Amazons, the Googles of the world. You can buy a hub. There's a number of hubs out there. Smart Things is a popular one. Winx was out. I don't know if they're still out or not. I use Habitat Elevation. There's a number of hubs out there that you can buy, and you can start to integrate these devices into the system yourself. Now, the thing about going the hub route or going the integrator route is that usually with the hub, the devices are tested with a protocol. And they're tested and they're supposed to work with that protocol, because in order for that device to have that particular protocol listed or marketed on their piece of equipment, they have to meet certain requirements. So they meet those requirements, and theoretically, every device that is tested with that particular protocol should work with that device. Your mileage may vary. What do you need to do first? What's the first thing you need to do when you get into a smart home? A lot of times we go to Walmart or we go to Lowe's and we see where they have smart light switches or where they have smart whatever. The first thing you need to do when you decide that you want to get into your smart home is you need to make sure your foundation is solid. What do I mean by make sure your foundations are solid? That means that you have addressed the shortcomings. For example, if you have a ISP router, which you have a router modem switch all into one, that means your Wi-Fi is coming from that router modem combination device. We call it a SOHO router. That means a small home office router. So if everything's coming from there, you need to develop your foundation. So what do I mean by develop? That means you need to make sure you have a router that could possibly use VLANs. And I'm using the term VLAN because you want to separate the what we call the Internet of Things or your smart home from your regular traffic inside your home. You want to divide that up as much as possible. So you want to get a nice solid router, and it doesn't have to be expensive. I use Ubiquiti products, and they have a router. I think it's like $49, and it does VLANs. And it is perfect for a small home. There are a number of companies out there. I think pfSense is a free alternative where you can actually get into pfSense, and it doesn't cost you anything. You just run it on you can run it on a Raspberry Pi. You can run it on an old computer or whatever. So that's another device that you can look into getting into as far as your router. And then a switch. Usually any switch that accepts VLANs will work fine. So you also want to move your Wi-Fi out to different points of the house, and we call it access points. So you want to run a direct home run from your access points, however you decide to do it, whether it's a mesh with Google Mesh or any of those other kind of devices. I'm an advocate of running an access point out and running it straight back to your switch and then right back into the router. That's how I like to do it. So it gives me the best possible bandwidth, and it gives me good throughput. So I usually do it that way. But you can, as long as you got a solid foundation, then the experience in your smart home will be great. So that's one thing you need to think about. Build your foundation. It doesn't have to be expensive, guys. I'm gonna say that again, time and time again. It doesn't have to be expensive. It just has to be segregated, or it needs to be segregated. It doesn't have to be. Once you first start out, you don't need to jump into it. But once you get serious about it, you need to look at another router and a different Wi-Fi solution. What are VLANs? VLANs are virtual area networks. So what that does is when you plug something into your network, whether it's your cell phone getting on the network or a device, or somebody comes in and you give them your Wi-Fi password, they send out what is called a broadcast message. And that broadcast message basically goes out and says, listen, I'm here. I need an address. You can't work on a network unless you have an address. So once you give them that password, you give what is called a DHCP server the authorization to give them an address. And then once they get that address, then they can get onto the network. So you want to divide that up. You don't want to have just like you don't want to have your guest network getting on your main network when it comes to your guest Wi-Fi. You don't want to have your IoT or your smart home devices getting on your main network. So you want to keep that segregated with what is called a virtual area network. It does not slow down your network. It just slows down the broadcast. That means, think of it like this way. You're at a party and everybody's in the room talking. You can't talk to the person all the way across the hall, or all the way on the other side of the room. So because you can't talk to that person, you can hear them, you can see that their mouth are moving, but you don't really understand what they're saying. So that's like a broadcast domain, and everybody's in there talking. So you want to segregate that. You want to take that person into the kitchen where you can talk to them in the kitchen. All right. Are integrators expensive? I don't want to say they're expensive because I've never used an integrator. I will say this, from what I've heard, and usually the thing about integrators is that if you go with one of their systems, they will not open the system completely up to you. They will not open it completely to you. So they may come in and you may, from what I heard is that they have to put the device onto the system, and then you can go into the system and actually do the automations to that particular device. So what does that mean? That means that's a reoccurring fee every time you add a device to your system. So when that guy comes out, you have to pay him a fee to come out. I looked into Control 4. There's, I think, Control 4 and Savant are the major players, but there's a lot of different companies out there, but those are the ones that comes to mind. I looked into Control 4 and they would not give me access to their software. So you had to go through their training and then they would give you access to the software. You had to be a dealer, you had to be licensed through them, and that's just how they operate. So they usually work in the high-end market. From what I've seen online, there's I'll link the channel in the description below, guys, but there's an individual that I listen to, I think it's TYM here on our YouTube. So I usually listen to him. He's a very knowledgeable individual, and he breaks it down. He breaks it down Barney style for everybody. He tells you, basically, I think he says to get into device or to get into some of the smart home things, or the video distribution or stuff like that. What he says is usually about $1,500-$1,600 per room of your home. So you can look. I say, if I was going into it and I was going to use a integrator, I would say that I would look at spending $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 just to get your video distribution, your audio distribution, and be able to control your smart home. He said that some of the devices do integrate with third-party apps. That means you can go to Amazon and buy a device, and it should integrate with that. The big thing when you're looking at any system, whether it's a DIY solution or an integrated solution, is that the device that you choose to integrate into your home, that they're compatible with the device that you've chosen. Not all devices work the same. Not all devices are compatible. Even though, like, say you use a Z-Wave device or a Zigbee device, and your device supports that, it may not support that device that you're trying to connect to that particular system. So make sure you do your homework on that. What do integrators provide? Integrators usually provide the consultation, the planning, the installation. They basically hold your hand and walk you through the process of getting your smart home set up. So that's what integrators do. What's the difference in you doing the work or an integrator doing the work? The difference is, of course, you're going to save on the installation, but there's a steep learning curve. I will tell you, once you learn one smart home device, or once you learn how to integrate with one smart home hub, then you're going to be good. You're going to be okay. You can basically take that knowledge and move on to another device. I started with SmartThings, and because I started with SmartThings, I was able to get into Habitat, and I was able to pick up Habitat pretty quickly. So, something to think about. How do you control your smart home? As I said earlier, you can control it with your tablet. You control it with your smartphone. You can control it with your computer. You can control it a number of ways. But the key is, you don't want to have, if you got 500 devices, you don't want to have 500 apps that you got to use to control. You can control it via voice assistant. That's what everybody wants to go to. Ideally, what you want to do with a smart home is you want to set this thing up and forget it. Periodically go in and do systems checks on it, make sure everything's working, but you basically want to set it up and forget it. If you have to constantly tinker with it, then it's going to be a problem. You're going to get frustrated with it. So you want to set it up and forget it. Ideally, you want to eventually go from being a smart home to integrating what I call home automation. So you want to be able to automate your home, so that things happen automatically. When I walk in the door, the lights come on. When I go up the steps, the lights come on. When I leave home, my alarm turns on. Those kind of things you want to be able to automate. Why do you need a hub? I just explained. You want to get all those things into one location. That way you can automate them all in one location. That way you don't have 1,500 apps that you got to go into the automate things. Now, some apps are going to work better with their native devices. So take that into account. You're not going to be able to automate every single thing from one device, but with a hub, 90% of the stuff you can actually do from that particular hub. So take that into account. What are protocols? Protocols are ways that devices talk to each other. That's the ways devices can communicate. And the best way to explain a protocol is simple. Is like, if you went to a party and you got Chinese, Spanish, and American guys there, they don't all speak the same language. You can all be in the same room and all in the same broadcast domain, but you're not speaking the same language. You can't communicate. So a protocol is like a language that, if a Z-Wave device can talk to another Z-Wave device, a Zigbee device can talk to another Zigbee device. That's how protocols work. So it's just basically a way that devices communicate with each other. What's the best protocol out there? Recently, they've created an alliance where I guess they're going to try to merge devices together into what is called Matter. The protocol is going to be called Matter, and that way it's going to be like a standard for smart homes. But currently, Zigbee and Z-Wave are the most popular devices out there. They're the most popular used devices on the market. So I use a lot of Z-Wave and I use a lot of Zigbee. The thing with each protocol is to understand that you have to eventually, depending on the size of the home, you need to put repeaters in. And that with that integrator, he would have told you to put those in. But if you're doing it yourself, you may not understand why my house is so sluggish, why it's not responding. That's because you only have so many hops that it has to get back to the hub before it activates whatever you're trying to do. So as a rule of thumb, if it's connected via hardwire, it's a repeater. So Z-Wave devices are a little easier to come by than Zigbee devices. Zigbee devices, they're usually battery powered and they're not, usually not repeaters. So I have a lot of plugs around my house. So I plug those put plugs into the wall, and then those Zigbee devices become repeaters. That's a way to expand your mesh network so that you can get a better experience. Okay. Can Wi-Fi devices bring down your network? Yes, a Wi-Fi device can bring down your network. The easiest way to look at a Wi-Fi device and see if it can bring down your network is, think of it this way. If you have Wi-Fi cameras around your house and you use Wi-Fi on your TV, i.e. you listen to Netflix and you have Wi-Fi. So because you're looking at Netflix and you have Wi-Fi. If you're looking at Netflix and you have Wi-Fi and you want to view one of your cameras, then if your back end or your foundation is not solid, you'll get what is called buffering. And you get buffering because everything's on the same Wi-Fi network and it'll start to spin. How you fix that is you create VLANs. You put your cameras on a different VLAN than your regular service. So that way you can still view the cameras. I'm not saying it's not going to be slower, because remember I said you want to get the largest possible internet connection you can. So everything, even though everything's not in the same room talking to each other, the door is still the same. The front door is still the same size. So to get back out to the internet is still the same. So as a rule of thumb, what you want to do is open that pipe up as much as possible, and you want to create those VLANs. That way everything has a route out a door back out to the internet. So you want to try to divide those Wi-Fi devices up, or it will bring down your network. I wouldn't say it would crash it, but it would make it so slow you would think it crashed. Hold on, guys. There we go. Got my notes here. My notes was sticking a little bit there. Do you need a hub if you have Amazon? And the answer to that question is you don't. You can go into Amazon or Google and you'll be fine. If that's what you want to do with. But I would say when creating your smart home, do not put yourself in a walled garden. When you start using Amazon specific devices, you're going to only be able to control that device with Amazon. So it's up to you. I would use a hub, and then I would connect my hub to my Amazon. That way you can control it via Amazon, and you can still automate things in your hub, and you get a lot better experience. I love Amazon to death. I do a lot of things through Amazon, but I do not use Amazon as my main hub unless I got a device that specifically works with Amazon. Then I'll use that as that particular hub. And I do have devices here that I can't connect to my Habitat Elevation hub, and I use a interconnect with Amazon. Which is better, Amazon or Google? And I'll tell you, it depends. It depends on what you want to do with your smart home. I would say try them both out and see which one works for you. Not every system is going to work for everybody. A lot of my friends use Google. They don't use Amazon. So, I don't use Google, so I can't talk about Google. I've never used Google. I've never been at a house that used Google, so I don't know. But I would say pick the one that works best for you. And if you have a hub, you can easily connect that hub to both devices and then try them both out. Buy your $60, $70 Google device and a $60, $70 Amazon device, and then try them both out. If you find that one works better than the other, then go with one or the other. Wi-Fi lights or switches. I have a chandelier in my dining room, and on that chandelier I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lights. If I had Wi-Fi lights, I would have to buy 9 Wi-Fi lights. Usually those Wi-Fi lights are about, say, for example, say those lights are $20 a piece. So significant amount of money that I got to pay for a light. I can buy one switch that control all the lights, and that's what I actually do here. I bought one switch, and that switch is $39.99. I connect that switch back to my hub, and then that control all 9 of those lights. So I would say there's a place for Wi-Fi lights, but there's also a place for a Wi-Fi switch. You know, if you have a lamp and you want to control like colors and everything, I would say use a Wi-Fi light bulb. You know, the thing with Wi-Fi lights is that once you turn power off to that specific circuit, then that bulb doesn't work. If you have a Wi-Fi switch and you come in and the lights are on, you can take the switch and turn the light off. If you want to use your voice to turn the light back on, you can. So that's the beauty, you know, of using a switch versus over a bulb. So take that into account when you decide you want to do that. What sensors are available? You can pretty much, if you can think of it, you can automate it. So I have contact sensors. Those are usually the ones that they put on your door when you have a guy come in and install like an alarm system. I have those on all the windows and all the doors coming into my home. So yeah, those are called contact sensors. They usually have a magnet on both sides, and they connect together with that magnet creates that feel, and that's what makes the sensor work. Inside that sensor, there may be a vibration sensor. There may be a number of things inside that one particular contact sensor that you can use for something else to automate your home. I also have their leak sensors, their motion sensors. I have then there are valves that you can turn things on and off. So I have a water shut-off valve. So if my leak sensor sense, that there's a leak under the sink or whatever, then it turns off the water to the house. That way my house is not flooded. You have sensors in HVAC systems. Pretty much anything you think that has a sensor has a sensor. They have IR sensors that where you could take like say your remote's IR and there's nothing to make a smart home. The device takes that IR signal and you can connect that to Amazon, and then you can control that device, via that IR signal. So that's something that you can think about. If you use, I haven't found anything that I couldn't automate. Your electrical, your solar system, all that can be automated in some way, shape, or form. So the sky's the limit, guys. The sky's the limit. Which brands are the best? I tend to lean towards things that's mainstream. I use the GE switches. I use the SmartThings sensors. I use like Go Control for like garage door opener, but I'm switching to MyQ. I think MyQ is kind of overtaking Go Control. I use Habitat Elevation, which I was kind of scared going into it, and I didn't think Habitat was going to make it, but I had SmartThing prior to that. Other sensors that I use, it just depends. I use Aeotech. Aeotech is what I think is since SmartThings kind of got out of the smart home scene, I think Aeotech is making SmartThings devices. So I use Aeotech as well. Their sensors have actually 6 sensors in one device. It's a little pricier. I think the sensor is like $60. That's why I only have one, but you get like 6 different sensors or attributes. So if you don't know what an attribute is, each sensor, when you get into the sensor is going to give you an attribute. So whether it's going to be vibration, whether it's going to be contact, whether it's going to be motion, whether it's going to be temperature, there's all kind of attributes. And once you put that into your hub, you're going to see those attributes pop up. Once those attributes pop up, then you can then go into automate, and you can automate off of any of those attributes you want. So example is like, I have sensors here that sense heat. So temperature. So I can turn my fans on around the house to circulate the air through my house based on the temperature in each room or the temperature of the house. So something to think about. I'm not going to say any sensor is best, any company is best when it comes to sensors. I've heard people talk great about Zool. I used to use a Zool for my siren around my house. So how you walk in and if the alarm go off, you get the I use the Zool siren for that. I used to use two of them, and they last a long time. So I also use Ecobee sensors. So, I mean, your mileage may vary. Okay, I'm back. Is Amazon recording your conversation? I don't know. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've heard where there was a female, and she said that she ran across a file, and on that file, Amazon was recording her conversation. I cannot say that that is true. I have no idea. So I do know. I would say that if you have a device, a voice assistant in your home, and that microphone, and it has a microphone because that's how the voice assistants work, that you would be being extremely naive to think that these companies were not recording your conversation. Even though they say they're not. I would say that companies sell data. So I would, if that's something you're concerned about, I would say then maybe a voice assistant is not for you. But like I would also say that you're extremely naive to think that you bought a device from a company and they have a camera on it, or a speaker on it, or a microphone, and they're not recording you. So I'm gonna leave that at that. If you're concerned about that, then maybe I would say the whole voice assistant might be a route that you don't want to take. Maybe you just want to go strictly automation. Is it hard for your family to start using smart home? Here's what I'm gonna tell you about this. If you decide that you're gonna go the smart home route, and your family is, how do I put it? If your family is, if you immediately just like drop things into your family, like you just change everything. Oh, you can't use the light switch. You got to use, voice assistants or whatever. If you make a drastic change, your family will rebel. So that's why I like going with the switches, because if my boo or whoever decide that she's gonna turn the switch off, she's gonna turn the switch off. She's not gonna mess with my automation. Whereas if you have bulbs, she turned that switch off, you're gonna have to reset that bulb eventually, because it's gonna be trying to ping the hub and it's not gonna get anything, and the hub's just gonna drop it. It's not gonna work. So yes, I would say kind of give your family little bites, and as they get used to it, then they ask for more. Fix a problem. That's what I tell everybody. Fix a problem. Once you fix a problem, then you'll be good to go. If you don't fix a problem, then they're gonna rebel. They're not gonna support you. So, what automation do I use? I use sunrise to sunset lighting. That means that, sunset to sunrise lighting. That means when the sun sets, the lighting comes on around my house. My deck light come on, my garage lights comes on, the lights on my porch come on. And I created that automation because when my spouse came home, I didn't want her getting out into a black area, into a dark area. So I lit it up. And then I also, when she walked into the house, when she get up close to the house, the lights in the foyer and everything comes on. So all the lights come on right there in the foyer. That way, if anybody's in there waiting for her, then they can immediately be dealt with. So I created that. When I leave my geo fence, my security system automatically arms. So that way I don't have to worry about going up to my pad and punching in that, the code for to arm my security system. It automatically, when I leave the geo fence, it automatically arms. Also, same thing with heating and air. When I leave the geo fence, my thermostat automatically changes to a different temperature, and that allows me to save energy. So when I walk up the stairs, the lights for the stairs come on. The fans, I have two fans in my den, in my bedroom. Those come on different times of the day to circulate the air around the house. When I get up in the morning, at night to go to work, I usually say a phrase, and my lights come on and light certain things. I use I use the span electrical panel that allows me to monitor my energy use. Every week I get a text message or email that this is how much electricity I've used. I use Tesla batteries also to help monitor my solar consumption and all that stuff. So I use a lot of different automations and things around the house to make my life a little bit easier. And believe it or not, you actually start to depend on these things, guys, because when I'm out of town at a hotel or something, I walk into the bathroom and the lights don't come on off, the lights don't cut off at a time, then I get kind of frustrated. But I think hotels are gonna eventually get into some smart home stuff. Can CCTV cameras be introduced into your smart home? Yes. I use a CCTV platform called Blue Iris. That means I built my own server and I have about 16 cameras around my house. You know, the good thing about cameras is, you know, because this is a DIY solution when it comes to that I'm using, if I get a message that like a sensors went off or, you know, there's movement around my house, what I do is I usually check cameras. Every entry is equipped with a camera that I could see that particular entry into the house. And then I can see around the house, because if somebody's moving, you can see the sensors going off around your home. So the cameras allow me to look into that. I also have a Ring doorbell, so when I'm laying on my bed, if somebody rings my doorbell, I can, you know, lean over, look at Amazon and say XYZ, and then the feed from the Ring doorbell comes up, and I see who that is on the front porch, and decide whether I want to go down the stairs or not. So yes, you can integrate cameras. The sunset, the sunrise lighting that I have around, that was one thing. That was one reason. If you put cameras, understand that cameras do not see in the dark. Cameras are a reflection of light, so they see what the light is reflecting back to the camera. So if you're going to put cameras in certain areas, what you need to do is put a light there, so that way the camera has something to reflect off. The light has something to bounce off of, and that's how you see things. So when my wife got out of the car, I have cameras around her. That way, if anything happened, I could see everything she was doing. And actually, when she used to sit in the car, and I could listen to her talk on the cell phone from a camera. So yes, cameras can be integrated into your smart home. All right. What advice would you give in starting a smart home? The bottom line is create a solid foundation. Don't put yourself in a walled garden, and design the smart home for what you want it to do. You know, your smart home is not going to be the same as my smart home. So design it for what you want it for. You know, if lighting is important to you, then design it for lighting. If, you know, security was one of my big things, so I designed mine mainly for security, but lighting was my segue into me getting things from my spouse to, you know, to do what I want to do. So she lacked the lighting and I built up the lighting, and then security became a big issue for both of us. So that was one thing that I set out to get, was security. Okay, guys, that's all I have right now. So, you know, if you have any more questions, or if there's any question that I didn't answer in this little talk, leave them down in the comment section, and then I will try to get back to you, or I will do another video on common questions that I'm asked, you know, via for smart homes. So thank you guys for watching, guys. Feel free to share this content. If you have not subscribed, like I said in the beginning, please consider subscribing. There'll be more videos to come after this, and I will see you guys in the next video. All right, have a good day now. Bye.